What's up, rockers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Instagram at talklouder_podcast, and of course our website, talklouderpodcast.com, where you'll find links to our merch and all of our previous episodes. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host Jason McMaster. And today was a really cool trip down memory lane. We have Mike Tramp from White Lion on the show today. And I told Mike, and I'll tell you, I have been a sucker for that song Wait ever since the first time I heard it. And I loved the video that was all over MTV. Great song, great band, great hooks, great singer, great looking frontman, great guitar player. They had the goods. And
well, when you kind of think about everything that you just said, I mean, Mike still has value.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean, and is still out there, and at age 62, looking real good, and obviously a talent.
Looked amazing.
Yeah, and he stays busy as shit, and is very talkative, as you'll see in this interview. But I don't know why I'm surprised. I just didn't know what to expect. I don't think that you did either.
No,
but when you think about, okay, White Lion, yeah, whatever, they're easy to make fun of because they're lumped into that whole hair metal thing, of course, as they're asking to be part of that because they're called White Lion. So when you think about, when you see the MTV hair rock, hard rock, hair metal thing, and you think White Lion, I think Wait. I know, watch the children. Is it children? What's it called?
It's called When the Children Cry.
When the Children Cry. I don't want to get it mixed up with Metal Church.
No.
Watch the Children Pray.
Yes.
Metal Church. Okay.
Metal Church.
And as well as other, their cover of Radar Love and all that. That song Wait, as you mentioned, even if you were, into something heavier or different, or into country music or whatever, and you hear that song Wait by White Lion, whether you were making fun of it in jest or not, going, wait, even if you were being cocky about that, you were still singing the motherfucker.
That's right.
You were still walking away with that little hook in there, which is very simple. It's one word.
Yeah.
And then I used to like the, and I mean this with respect, never had a chance to love you.
Yeah.
That secondary line in the chorus?
Yeah.
I love that because of the accent.
Yeah.
When I sing, it's kind of a Bon Scott thing, right? It's kind of a...
Yeah, it's got a little slur to it.
Marbles in your mouth kind of thing. It's not Mike's fault. He's Danish. His accent, right? But as a singer, I pick stuff up like that, and I use it in I've been ripping off Rob Halford and Bon Scott. I'm not telling you anything.
Right.
My entire singing career. So
yeah,
when I hear things like that line, I never had a chance to love you, was the thing that I was trying to steal, or like, oh man, that's part of the hook. To me, it was,
Well, that song and so many others. Tell Me, I was a big fan of that song. We mentioned When the Children Cry, Little Fighter. And Mike is with us today because he's releasing a new album on April 14th called Songs of White Lion. And basically what he's done is reimagined the songs that we all know from White Lion and sort of brought them up to date with his 62-year-old voice versus his 26-year-old voice. But the music stays pretty true to the originals. I'm loving it. I've been listening to it for a couple days now. I wasn't sure what to expect. I was like, is he going to go unplugged? Is he going to give the songs different arrangements or whatever? And the answer is no. If you like the songs from White Lion the way you remember them, I think you'll like this updated version just with Mike's, more mature voice, I guess. And he talks about that on the show. He's very forthcoming. One of the things I really enjoyed about the conversation today is he's
honesty.
Yeah, he's very honest. He doesn't mind making fun of himself. He doesn't mind sharing his background. And I learned a lot about his songwriting process with regards to his appreciation for Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen. And when you learn that about him, you realize there's much more to him than the pop star on MTV who looks so glamorous. You're
telling me exactly what just happened to me just by hanging out with the guy for a while. It's like I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I didn't realize that he's right. He's coming from somewhere else. His writing aspect and topics, his lyrical topics are not just like, boy meets girl and the rest. You know what I mean? It's the opposite of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of crazy, man.
Yeah. And what's crazier too is that he had 2 hit songs with those types of themes. The Little Fighter, people may not realize, is a song, and he'll tell you about it today, but it's an environmentally conscious song, environmentally aware song.
Right.
And When the Children Cry, I think, is a little more obvious. It speaks about children around the world who are impacted by war and other such tragedies. But those songs are more relevant today than they were in 1987 or whatever.
He's coming from the same place that like Bono is coming from when Bono writes lyrics. It's that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's not what you would expect when you see a White Lion video on MTV in 1987.
Yeah.
It's completely... What a great sort of shocking surprise that you don't think about when you're 22 years old and succumbed by the power of MTV, and it's almost like you're being poisoned by, no pun intended, by glitz and glamour and lights and money and record deals and big hair or leather pants or shaved heads and no pants.
Yeah.
Whatever it is when your hormones are taking over anyway. And here you got the singer from White Lion singing about serious issues. So it was excellent to have Mike Tramp from White Lion, but Mike Tramp as Mike Tramp here today on the Talk Louder podcast. His place, Dave.
Yeah.
His place, he was just telling me about it. He's down the road from where he spent a lot of time living with his brother, but he found it up down the road from his brother's place. It was just a roof and 4 walls, and he put it all together.
Since you brought that, I'm just bringing this little statue.
Oh my God.
Oh, man. Okay.
Where the fuck did you get that?
Yeah.
Well, I have some very, very, very hardcore dedicated Irish fans, and they come over once in a while. And I'm not bullshitting you. For the last 10 times they've come, they got a Thin Lizzy present each time.
Oh, those are good friends.
Wow.
Those are great friends.
That's a beautiful piece, man.
Yeah, I mean, I played a couple of years ago in Dublin, and I went to see the life-size statue of it and things like that.
That's amazing. Well, I was going to ask you, and I'm going to go ahead and get ahead of myself since we're on the topic of Thin Lizzy and Phil. I noticed in one of your publicity photos, you have a tattoo of Bob Dylan on one arm and a tattoo of Phil Lynott on the other arm.
Yeah.
So tell me, how important were those 2 guys to you as songwriters and musicians? And let's focus a little more on Phil than Bob, because Bob gets plenty of love.
He gets plenty of a lot of things. Well, I mean, I do appreciate. I know we will cover a lot, and I have all the time you guys need.
Great.
The thing is, if you for a second, forget the overall look and sound and image of White Lion and the 80s and all that kind of stuff. That is a place that I arrive at in 1982 when I come from Europe and I come to New York and I meet Vito and the 80s have sort of just started. I've been a long time Van Halen fan before I come there, and I'm definitely seeing a lot of things in David Lee Roth that I want to follow. I mean, always known that I'm a different singer, but there's something that drives me and brings me to America for that reason. But prior to that, I mean, growing up in Denmark in sort of the late 60s, I was raised on folk music and the Danish versions of Dylan and Neil Young, and later on Springsteen and stuff like that. And that is who I am as an individual songwriter. When Mike Tramp is by himself with a guitar, that is my DNA.
Wow.
Okay.
So all the songwriting, including the White Lion songwriting, comes from that starting point. And Vito and I would sit across from each other. I would be sitting with my Martin guitar, and he'd be sitting with the Strat, and I'd be playing A minor, G, C, and then he started adding 12 different fingers, and it ended up sounding the way it was. But the simplicity of the melodies always came from that. And very early on, before even there were the Boys Are Back in Town and stuff like that, I had been introduced to the early Thin Lizzy, the trio, when it was like something completely different.
Yeah, very folk. It was kind of
exactly. It was just something about Phil that was just so different from everything else. I loved the way he sang. I loved the low voice and stuff like that. So as it went on, I've always been much more fan of the more folky songs that Phil, wrote, especially on the Jailbreak album and Johnny the Fox. Of course, the Boys Are Back in Town and things like that. But those strumming guitar songs that I could hear, and I could also see it in his bass playing, that he was actually a guitar player, that just sat there and strum and sang the songs, and he took that style into his bass playing. And then, of course, his lyrics.
Oh, yeah. He's a poet, isn't he?
Phenomenal. But do you want me to show you all the books I have?
Did you ever get to see him live? That's the one band I regret never seeing live.
Unfortunately, I only got to see them once. And that was on the Renegade tour, where there's a lot of great songs on that album, but at that time, with the keyboard introduced to Thin Lizzy, and especially the Brian Robertson, Scott Gorham sound of those two, I almost call it like Allman Brothers, or guitar playing underneath an Irish singer. That was sort of gone, and I almost do not remember so much about that concert, so the memories for me is prior Live and Dangerous.
Right. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I never got to see him, and that's one band I regret never getting to see. I was probably a little too young when they were at their...
Well, it's always like that. I mean, I never, that's a lot of things I never got to do, and now I'm going back and seeing if I can do it.
Yeah. Which brings us to the reason we're talking today. Thank you for sharing your Thin Lizzy memories with us. You are about to release an album called Songs of White Lion. It comes out April 14th, I believe. And it is a reimagined collection of some of, obviously, White Lion's biggest hits and some of the other songs as well. What compelled you to put this collection of songs out at this time?
Another great question. And here's the answer. I mean, I ended White Lion in 1991, and maybe we'll get back to some more elaborate, answers to exactly what happened there. But from the second I left or I ended the band that I'd started, the next chapter would already be something completely different. And then, for 3 years, I had a band called Freak of Nature. They succeeded in Europe, but never became a financial success, but the highlight of my musical career. And when that ended, I knew at that time that I had been married 3 times. And the first one took the house, the second one took the kids, and the third one just took my songwriting, So, I mean, I knew that I was not going that way anymore. So in 97, I released my first solo album, Capricorn. And from that day on, wanted to go down that path, would, in lack of better words, compare myself to my heroes, be more like a Tom Petty, a Springsteen, a Mellencamp. That is what, like I said earlier, that's who I am as a songwriter. But of course, already on my first American tour with my solo band, I show up at the venue, and what does the banner says? Tonight, White Lion. And I'm sitting there, you know, in the dressing room fumigating, you know, I mean, completely, you know, going. When I walk out on stage here, my hair is completely cut off. I have a Telecaster around my neck, you know, and the first three songs run into each other. So you know, you can't greet the people. That's how the show is. And I almost start screaming, and the people says, "This is not White Lion, man. White Lion is a long time ago."
Right.
And with time, it would just escalate, and you know, that sticker would just be slapped on my back, no matter what I did. And the thing was that I changed my sound that drastically, that it wasn't just a matter of playing a White Lion song, because the guitar players in my band and the drummers were people that didn't know the 80s. I says, if you've been part of the 80s, you can't be part of my band. I says, there ain't gonna be almost no guitar solos, man. Just stand behind and just look like you're just playing your instrument. You know, no movements, no big flashy stuff.
Right.
And but then after a few years, I sort of got called back into the arena, and I started, you know, in 2005, going out with, you know, a version called Tramp's White Lion. We toured around America together with Enough's Enough, you know, and ending up in clubs with like 35 people. And I went to myself, I says, who are all these people asking me if I'm going to bring White Lion back together when there's nobody showing up?
Right.
And then I pushed it one step further, and after a couple of big European festivals, thought that I could actually call it White Lion. And I recorded an album called White Lion Return of the Pride, which sounds nothing like what White Lion would have sounded like. And that should have been a sign enough to myself. So after that, obviously also doesn't take off, and Vito starts, you know, putting a couple of lawyers on me and things like that, I realized that this is not a place I should be. So, and I rekindled my solo career. And then, you know, 8 solo albums down the line, here I am today. But during that time, every time I've gone around Europe to play, the promoters always go, hey, man, can you send a video from the rehearsal room where you play Broken Heart or Wait or stuff like that? I says, no, I can't, because it's not that kind of band. But bit by bit, I got sucked into it, and I started playing it. And then I realized, if I have to play the White Lion songs, I have to play them note for note, but how I am today. So basically, I was 26 when we did Pride. Mm-hmm. So I've just taken that 2 and 6 and turned it around. Now I'm 62. I brought the songs down a few steps, and now it just sounds and feels like me when I go out and do these songs. And now I'm comfortable with it, that it feels right. It's not like I'm trying to squeeze into my old pants from 87. Yeah. You know, I go out there with conviction, and now I own the songs before the songs owned me.
Yeah, yeah.
Very good.
I've listened to I listened to the record, and you stay very true to the songs as they were recorded and as we remember them from the past. The only difference I can tell immediately is your voice. It's obviously much more mature and older, and but it sounds great. So my question to you then is, when you're in the studio and you're re-recording these songs, and I emphasize re-recording versus playing them live, because when you're re-recording, I imagine you really analyze the notes and the song structure. And what memories come back when you revisit those songs from a re-recording them perspective?
I mean, once again, man, great great question because
Dave's good at this.
Dave is really good, man.
Dave's
I'm
good at this.
comfortable here.
I'm just a cheerleader. Whenever he needs me, I'm just sitting here ready to go. Yeah.
It's just the way it is. Little Steven Springsteen. He goes to him whenever he needs. Man.
Yeah. I'm here to hold up the swag. Hey, I need one of those mugs.
The thing was, and like I said before, when you're going to play a White Lion song, you're also going to deal with Vito Bratta, not just Mike Tramp with the great hair and running around, and et cetera, et cetera. You're dealing with a guitar player who is probably the most detailed guitar player from the 80s. There are similarities, to, of course, to his hero Eddie Van Halen. But when you go into Vito Bratta's guitar solos, you're going into Beethoven, Mozart. You cannot get around them. Once you start the solo, you have to play it note for note. You cannot suddenly go blues. You cannot suddenly just grab the whammy bar and stuff like that. You have to play it. So Marcus Nand, who is the guitar player on the album and a guy that I played with and known for many, many years, we talked about this for a year. And I says, you're gonna put some work into that. Can you play these songs in a different key and still play the riffs? Because there are certain songs that rock and roll has written that is impossible to play in different key. Mm-hmm. And some of these, I don't have a problem saying it. I don't know how many musicians or people, in tune with music out there, but the original Broken Heart was the first song Vito and I wrote, and probably the highest song I ever sang, is written in D minor. And we're playing it today in F sharp minor. I'm almost going an octave down. And it's for Marcus to learn these solos and playing them note for note is a masterpiece in itself. Yeah. So that was the most important thing, because there was no point for me going into the studio trying to do these songs in an original key. That's 40 years ago. First of all, that it was simply just impossible. Mm-hmm. It was actually impossible just already on our last White Lion album. I had started out way, way, way too high, and it was never really my natural way that I was going to sing. So it naturally took its turn. It's kind of like when you put that little box on the toilet where you could put your feet up on, because now it's tougher to get off. It's like you adjust, like Clint Eastwood said in a great movie called Heartbreak Ridge. You adapt, you improvise to the situation, and of course, along the way, we have done that. But you started talking about Phil Lynott before. I feel a little bit of Phil Lynott in me when I go out and sing these songs today. And that's because a lot of his vocal performance, where he's able to move off the beat and come back to the beat by the time he needs to change, is something that I've studied for a while. It's a sort of freedom you only get when you sung the songs for 30 years. He obviously managed to do it the first time he sang the song. But for me, it took a lot of years to learn that kind of thing, where now you're free off the song. So you know it so well.
Spoken word is a phrase that I like. I feel like it comes from, a folk side of things. I think it comes, like Dylan obviously had sort of a cadence, but even spoken word has a special delivery and its own cadence. There's actually a beat behind how they're delivering things. I think reggae music has the same, where they're flipping the beat the whole time and the singer is just finding their own way. And there's this like odd time, but yet there's this, clock going the whole time. Philip Lynott was master at that, as we all know. When you think about, you've got this groove and he's going, da 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 da. It's almost like the rap and the hip hop, and just how you scheme your cadence over groove. I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's something that not everybody can do because they feel like they always have to come down on the one, which is you do not always have to come down on the one.
Yeah, could you imagine talking to Metal Edge about this back in 1987?
They wouldn't have understood what the fuck we were just talking about.
Right, exactly. Well, I listen. Yeah. No. I listened to the record, and sort of what I was getting at is when I listened to the record, to me, it's almost like a photo album because the songs are snapshots of times in my life. And that's why I was asking you, when you revisit those songs in the studio and you get meticulous about recreating the notes and recording them, I can only imagine what that photo album looks like for you because you're the creator.
Yeah, it's a lot of good-looking blonde girls, with very little. No, it is because I was saying to someone else, for my White Lion memories, the chase is better than the catch.
Mm-hmm.
The shitty clubs, the one motel room we had to share, who takes a floor, who takes a bathroom, stuff like that. And then the dressing room at Madison Square Garden where the band is in an argument. So you pick and choose. What is it you want to take with you to the grave? And, how is it that I want to remember Vito Bratta, who I wrote these songs with? It's not the lawsuit. It's not, man, are you going to get done with this guitar tone or not? It's the laughs. It's the fun time we had in the studio in Frankfurt, Germany, when our management sent us over there to record the Fight to Survive album. And we're stuck in a place where there is absolutely nothing to do. And what we came up with, those are the memories of brotherhood that disappeared when Pride succeeded.
Mm-hmm. Did I read somewhere that at one point, one of the reasons I was kind of curious about this album at this time is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought at one point that Vito owned the catalog or owned the music or something which would prevent you from doing an album like this. Is that no longer the case, or was that never true in the first place?
No, it was never true, but since I don't have any problem and I'm on very good terms with Vito and James, so I mean there's no issues there. The thing was that the name White Lion was owned by a company that Vito and I started when we started as a partners. There was the first thing our lawyer says, okay, we're going to put up a sub-publishing company. We didn't know what that meant at that time. We hadn't written the first song yet. It says, and this will be to protect everything. That company owned White Lion. Mm-hmm. And as I have done a lot of unthoughtful things in my life, and thought back later on, I resigned from that company when I did my first solo album to do a new deal with another company. So, et cetera, et cetera. And all I thought about was just getting the money to do that album, et cetera, stuff like that. I ever thought, well, down the road, you will probably be doing something White Lion that maybe you shouldn't be doing this. So that's basically where it came down to that he owns the name of the band that I started.
Okay.
But that's okay because I actually came to terms with it. And Vito and I spoke about it sometimes. And, he always said to me, Mike, man, it's like, man, I really hate doing this kind of thing to you. But I hate turning on YouTube and seeing White Lion in concert and then seeing that it's not me playing the guitar. Then I don't want it to say White Lion because White Lion is the band that I was part of.
Yeah.
And I says, you know what? I finally get it. I finally understand what that really means. And then it occurred to me also that I don't want to be up on stage calling it White Lion when it's not White Lion. Therefore, the album, Songs of White Lion, which is also the concert poster. So when you see that poster, it's not tonight appearing White Lion. It's Mike Tramp, the Songs of White Lion. He's playing the Songs of White Lion tonight as close to the original thing.
Right. Yeah, that sounds reasonable on both sides. I can see Vito's point and I can see your point as well. So I get that.
Let me ask a question.
Yeah.
You feel like and this is just asking your opinion and how it might correlate with your feelings you just expressed, because I totally get it. I completely get it and understand. But on a very large level, when you think about, I don't know, Kiss, when Ace Frehley and Peter Criss are still alive and they see Kiss everywhere and they're not on the stage or even on the poster, and the caricature that they are famous for making famous are being worn by two completely viable and excellent musicians who are just as deserving as anybody else. I mean that, wearing. You get it. You understand the question.
Yeah,
I wonder what they're. I mean, are they mad about it, or because they're not? As far as kickbacks go, monetary kickback. Ace Frehley and Peter Criss, I don't think they're receiving anything other than what catalog they may or may still own, and I think they sold it all.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way in hell that you would not be sitting at home being extremely bitter about this. I mean, we could pick up a lot of different bands, you know, sure. Of course, you know, Kiss is a trademark, but Gene and Paul from the beginning had the business together before they had the first song written. Right. There were no options in their contracts. It is Fort Knox. They are geniuses when it comes to contracts. You know,
I did not expect it to actually go that way. The first thing you said is probably what I was fishing for, but yeah,
it's valid.
No, but it's just that's just how that goes. So there's no way around it. I mean, it's like replacing Han Solo or Luke Skywalker. You know, George Lucas owns the Star Wars thing, and they can do. You know, the people down in South America when they made Menudo were much smart about it. This just says when you turn 16, you're out of the band. Wow. It's like rock and roll because there's still 78-year-old men that go up on stage and hack their way through the songs.
Yeah. You know the movie, the sci-fi movie Logan's Run. Do you know this movie?
Yeah, I couldn't name you all the things, but I remember seeing it.
So when you turned I think it was 30. You like, well, it's nice knowing everybody. I love you. You know, I love all my friends, but got to go. And you just walk into the chopping block. So exactly. It's like you automatic extermination at age 30 or something. I don't know. It may have been a different age, but it was it's the Menudo thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's we decapitate you at age 16. You are gone. You mean nothing. You own nothing. Bye-bye. You know,
you've overstayed your welcome.
Yeah. Well, there's actually countries where they circumcise you when you're 16, so you can choose which way. But I have a nice description for your listeners and your viewers, and it's a story that I've taken out onto the clubs and the pizzerias and the homes that I've played in for the last 10 years when I've toured the world, and that is. People always remember this thing that when you stand in line at the supermarket, it could be Walmart, it could be anything, and you pick up the National Enquirer and you just go through it, and there's just one ridiculous story after another. You do that with a circus magazine, Anno 88, and you go through it very quickly. It's like, the first 5 minutes is all blonde hair. And then the next one is a jet black hair, so that's first the singers, and that was, that was all of us. And then the guys. But then they left the last 2 pages for the keyboard players, the one with the bad hair, the one, that didn't fit on stage and was left off stage. And now you jump 35 years forward, and you are the Monsters of Rock cruise, and you're standing there with a beer in your hand and your friend, and you see the banner and the logo on stage, and then these 5 guys walks on stage and start playing the song you sort of know, and your friend goes to you, I don't recognize anybody in the band. And then I go, well, look, that's the keyboard player. He owns the name of the band.
Right. The guy that was on the back page of the magazine you looked at, that you did the pages you didn't look at.
Yeah.
You weren't looking for him. Yeah.
Trademark the band,
Let's talk about MTV. You guys, when Pride exploded, I think that it's fair to say that the video helped that song and the band tremendously. And let's face it, I mean, I'm looking at you today in 2023, and you still look like $1 million damn dollars. I don't get it. So let's. Was MTV something that you embraced, or was it sort of a necessary evil that you just played along with because that's what you had to do at the time? Did you see any value in it?
I just add that when I walk out on stage, I'll be a little bit more presentable. Right now, I'm at home, at the fire going. There's a storm outside, and right now, I just feel like being the way I am here. You know,
you look great.
You look awesome, man. Just hang on to what you got. Keep doing that.
Wear the hat in case people would tune in and go, "Who is he?"
Right. No, so, I think people are going to figure it out, man.
There's actually a very interesting story. I actually feel like I have a lot of good stories, which is not about hotel rooms and backstage. And that was that when Motley Crue was ruling America with Home Sweet Home video, was so tired of it because it had been number one and the most requested for, longer than, Pat Sajak was on, Wheel of Fortune. This is not documented, but the story is still true. MTV came up with some sort of office rule that when you have been in their rotation for like a certain amount of month, you weren't eligible anymore for the most requested videos.
Okay.
Now, when the Wait video, which we struggled to get our record company to pay, there were nothing that was given to us from the band. We fought for doing that. And MTV had been playing it like at 3 a.m, where people are coming home and, eating cold pizza and going to sleep. Then one time they played it at prime time. And obviously it was like a, explosion of requests and stuff like that. And then we hear this from our record company that, that the Wait video has been in rotation for so long, man, they don't really feel you're eligible for that. And I picked up the phone from the record company and I called MTV. And after a few people passed me on, I actually got through to the person sitting and making this. And I just, with my Danish accent and stuff, like I just started yelling at him and saying, man, hey, I know someone who knows someone who knows someone. He says, you're right. And next week, they started playing the Wait video and it started climbing up the most requested videos. And once it started landing there in the top, obviously now we were starting selling 100,000 albums a week.
Right. I remember
saw that video all the time. That video was all the time. I mean, I was not trying to sing wait, but I felt myself walking around singing it, and it was all because of that phone call you made.
I've been a sucker for that song since the day I first heard it, and the video. I love the video, and one of the things I like about it is that it's black and white. So
there's a lot, and it's. Again, we were going in to do we had done a video a couple years earlier on, for Broken Heart of the first album, but this was sort of big time, and lots of photographers were part of the shoot and everything, like all the big things, and we knew at that time that we were up against, Van Halen, Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, Rat, Poison. We knew what we were up against. I mean, 1987, MTV has reached its peak without a doubt. And you know what? Hindsight is 2020, but when you look back, there was nothing that came easy. Everything we came with MTV, were always, this and this. So it wasn't like they said, man, you got to rush, for the next video and stuff like that. But interesting enough that on the second album or the third album, when we then do Radar Love, which is almost a 7.5 minute song, we also went all the way and did sort of what we called a mini movie around that. And MTV embraced it.
Yeah, well, by then you're drawing eyeballs to the channel. They love White Lion now.
Yeah, you had the attention span before you had the attention span for a 7-minute track.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, prior to that, of course, we had "When the Children Cry," which was #1 and things like that.
Yeah, that was another big one. Yeah.
Both a song and a video that the record company didn't want to do. They didn't believe in it, and we simply fought like crazy for that, man. Says, if not, we're gonna pay for it ourselves, and we're gonna send it to MTV. And we did that video, one night after on tour with AC/DC, up all night shooting this video, and then doing. It was just one of those days, but nothing was guaranteed. We were crossing our fingers.
yeah. I was going to ask you. I just got done speaking of that song, "When the Children Cry." I just got done reading this book.
Oh yeah, okay.
And for those who are listening and not watching, I'm holding up a copy of "Nothing But a Good Time." It recently came out, and it basically chronicles the '80s hard rock scene. And there was a quote in there that I thought was kind of funny and also very telling of the times. And it dealt with White Lion specifically. And I don't know if it was John Kalodner, the famous A&R guy, or somebody said, when you presented the song "Little Fighter," a lot of people may not know this, but the song it's an environmental song. It's about a Greenpeace boat on a mission to save the whales, basically. And Kalodner said, it may not be Kalodner, but somebody in the industry said, it was Kalodner. Okay. Kalodner said, "Saving whales doesn't sell records. Leather pants sells records."
I know. I mean, he was saying that to Vito, and says, "Man, you got to tell Tramp that saving whales and all that kind of stuff. That ain't rock and roll, man. Leather pants are,
So,
and it was in many ways. It was one of those things that of course now I get to deal with in these interviews, because now I actually deal with great questions that like from you guys and other people that actually are interested in hearing a story, because this was a dilemma that I fought all through the White Lion history and the '80s history. In one way, I wanted to be sort of like David Lee Roth. On the other side, I didn't sing like him. My philosophy were completely different. I wanted to tell the truth and not entertain with my stories. As much as I've enjoyed everything he says, half the time I don't understand what it is he's talking about. But here I was, born and raised in Denmark. I had found the story about, the Rainbow Warrior, a little fishing trawler belonging to Greenpeace, blown to pieces in 1978 by French secret frogmen and stuff like that. And it says, here is a David versus Goliath story. Yeah. And even though that I'm neither bringing out the Rainbow Warrior in the song or saving whales or stuff like that, it was just something that I felt. And the truth is that the song has stood the test of time, because as I go around the world, and especially in America, so many people took that song to their heart in their own struggle in life. I've had people who have lost their kids to diseases and saying, "Why my boy was fighting his last year, man, he was a little fighter. He loved that song." I've had soldiers returning from their tour of duty with one leg saying, "Man, that song kept me alive." And so in the long run, that was what it was about. But when I joked around before about these, the interviews with Metal Edge or Circus Magazine, I wasn't good at that, sexual end-to-end talk and backstage stories. You have a Spinal Tap story. They said, "No, I don't have a Spinal Tap story. Spinal Tap is built around us. We are the fucking story." Yeah. It's just one of those things. I live the misery.
Well, I think that's a really, really great, I don't know what word to use. Problem is not right, but to have when you're, since I don't have any dirty panties stories for you, but I do have all of this stuff that I truly believe in with my heart, and I can make this work in sort of I hate the term hair metal, but in a heavy metal or a hard rock avenue or arena type place, headspace that has a lot of fans who might, who obviously like my band. I can get a message out through this style of music, and it's going to touch people in a certain way and still be a hard rock ballad or a heavy metal song, or it's going to shed light on a lot of areas. Now, it doesn't matter if within the inner sanctum management or even band members are making fun of my lyrics saying, you know, you need to put your leather pants on and shut up about saving whales. You have the last laugh. I'm not saying that it deserves a last laugh, but you win. And you know who else wins even bigger? Those fans that it hit their hearts.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
we at times, as much as we wanted the cover of Circus Magazine, as much as we loved the videos, as much as I loved running out on stage with my clothes and changing jackets 3 times just in the first song, man. You know, I mean, I'm raised on Freddie Mercury and David Bowie. I always knew that the stage was a place you perform, not just sing the songs.
Yeah.
There's also a time when you want to talk about things.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. And I probably think that the industry, it probably created more problems or issues for us because we sort of had to follow. It was very tough to be Henry Rollins or Kurt Cobain in 1988. And then, you know, play together with Poison or Motley Crue and things like that, et cetera, you know. But that doesn't mean that there were not band members that would return to the hotel room and read Moby Dick.
Right.
It's true. I think that, I'm sorry, Dave, to interrupt. I like the names that you probably picked them just out of thin air, but Henry Rollins and Kurt Cobain, they're not writing songs about dirty panties.
Right.
Matter of fact, they're probably writing something that's more to the heart, i.e. saving the whales, than it is dirty panties, 100%. So I like how this is panning out. Sorry, Dave, I just wanted to comment.
I was going to sort of make the same point. I think the fact that 2 of Mike's most enduring songs, Little Fighter and When the Children Cry, are stayed relevant to this day. Yeah. Whereas a lot of songs written by his peers and maybe even some of his own songs with White Lion, maybe don't, you know, he wrote those when he was 24, 25, 26. They might not resonate today, but the lyrical content of Little Fighter and When the Children Cry, the message in that song, you just turn on the news, man, and that stuff is still very relevant. So I do think you had the last laugh.
And it's incredible that if you have to look at that, I should add something to what you said, because what you said was correct. But I sit at my manager's house where I was living in Staten Island, New York in 85 and write When the Children Cry. This is when Ronald Reagan was president. America was smiling. Nobody was at war. The rock and roll, the music industry was at its peak. The checks could not be big enough when they signed bands and stuff like that. And here I am writing a song about today, not necessarily using futuristic words, but basically just using, you know, like simplicity. And over the last 5 or 6 years, I mean, just to start with yesterday, I mean, the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, you know, the Ukraine war, you know, Afghanistan retreatal, you know, and just one disaster at all. But it was simply just because as being raised in Denmark with only 5 million people, the first country who liberated pornography and sex, and we were very much introduced to all issues in the world. Therefore, it was not difficult for me to look at those kind of things. Therefore, I didn't want to sing about, you know, dirty panties or my G-string turned to A or sexual innuendos. I simply couldn't look in the mirror. I couldn't go out there and show me your tits and stuff like that.
Right.
It's just not me. I like to see a pair of tits, but it's, you know, that's not the problem. I just couldn't use that as my stage persona.
Sure, it's on the list, but it's not. It may not be the first 5 things on your list. I get it. Yeah. I feel like just your town, where you're from, your place, your planet, your world. And it seems like you grew up very liberated because of where you're from.
Yeah, I think that's
Very
kind of
liberated. So it's easy for you to write about things that you feel strongly about and not have any questions or qualms about what it is that you're going to write. And if someone else walked in and go, why would you want to do that? It's like, well, why wouldn't I? You want me to put on a mask? I'm not going to put on a mask. So
there were many times, especially as we went from the Pride album into the Big Game album. Even, I showed up with a song called Broken Home. And it is so simple lyrics. It's simply just about a kid growing up in a broken home, and here's his mom and dad. And the band is sitting there with management and record company going, we don't know if this is the right thing. And only a few years later, Jeremy from Pearl Jam becomes the biggest thing ever. And I go, was it my hair?
Yeah.
Was whatever. Yeah. Simply, I'm just writing a song about real life, and I'm not doing anything that's that controversial.
No.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask you, and I think you've kind of already answered it, but you're obviously a man that's got, you're obviously aware of the world around you, and you don't mind singing about it. But I think that the industry wants to keep you in the box of Mike Tramp, the guy who sang Wait and had all the girls in the front row screaming and yelling and all that sort of thing. And that's, I was going to ask you, how frustrating is it for you as an artist when you've got something of substance to say, to get that kind of pushback and resistance because the industry wants to keep you as Mike Tramp 1987?
Yeah, they're in the White Lion days, of course, I had also not found myself all the way around. I was still, lost in searching. I think most people were, we all were, should we wear pink tonight or should it just be black or whatever? There was a lot of trial and error and things like that, but it's sort of the business and the movement allowed for us to go out and do these things. And so we pushed the boundaries. But sometimes when you feel like that, it just didn't. It's almost like you were ahead of time without being really ahead of time. It's just like, hey man, I came to hear rock and roll. I don't want to be preached at.
Yeah. Well, we've touched on some fairly heavy topics. I want to go back. The first time I ever saw you was 1988, opening for AC/DC. And I didn't realize that White Lion had also toured with, besides AC/DC, you toured with Ozzy, Aerosmith, Motley Crue, Kiss. These are the biggest names in the business at that time, and to this day, if we're being honest. What were those? Did those tours provide you any time to interact with any of those bands? I know before you said you don't have any Spinal Tap stories, but I'm trying to find out if you had any fun with any of those bands, backstage, off stage, whatever, any interaction, or were you ships in the night?
Day off, whatever.
Oh, I have millions.
Millions. Well, let's see.
And I actually
Dave.
I feel I have a story that sort of is so different than what others would have by being like the famous scene with Motley Crue and Ozzy sniffing ants and stuff like that. You would expect that. But here's a different story, because I became really, really good friends with Steven Tyler when we toured Aerosmith. Wow. And, it was a permanent vacation tour. It was the first clean tour. So they were very coherent, and they invited only me in every night to eat with them, and, in the dressing room and stuff like that. Wow. But that, again, I think it was my European thing of me approaching them different. And we're playing in Edmonton, Canada, and we have a day off. And we're playing this, and both Aerosmith and White Lion is visiting that gigantic shopping mall there, which is basically like almost Disneyland on the roof because it's so damn cold in the winter. And bit by bit, we split up, and I'm actually walking together with Steven Tyler down the mall like that, and we pass this gigantic water park where kids are just like having time of their life. And Tyler looks at me and goes, "Should we?" So we go across to a sports store, buy 2 pair of bathing shorts, change in the store, run across, and spend 3 hours in that water park, just him and I. No girls, no drugs, no rock and roll, just two men.
Kids. Two kids playing outside. I love it, man.
And that to me is what I was looking for. I always had a different interest in when I met these bands and what I would share with them and stuff like that, going to the movies with Joe Perry, talking fitness, stuff like that. On AC/DC, I got up every morning and hung with the road crew. I wanted to see the stage being built. That's why today there's nothing I don't know about what a rock and roll show is, from the catering to how the PAs connect and stuff like that. I always had an interest. I actually always dreamt more about being a roadie than a singer.
Wow.
So I had that interest, and every single AC/DC show I watched from the monitor board.
Yeah.
I stood there thinking back when somebody came to my house in Denmark and put on High Voltage, and how I sat there picking up the jaw from the floor going, What the hell is this? I have never heard anything like this. And basically 11 years later, here I am, and the great thing about both with Aerosmith and AC/DC, and later on Ozzy and Motley, we're not just, a support band, we're a high paid special guest.
Yeah. This is why I asked the questions. That was pure gold right there.
And there's one last little story here, which comes from Brian Johnson and AC/DC. That they were almost never around AC/DC. It was almost like, like a creature of the night. You didn't see them. But suddenly one night, I see Brian Johnson come out and sort of crawl up to the stage. And then, when we go back to the dressing room, he goes, "Lads, it's really nice to see girls in our audience."
Yeah, I bet.
Ones that look like girls, right?
Yeah, girls that look like girls. Yeah. Mike, you've been more than gracious with your time today. We'll wrap this up. We really do appreciate you spending so much time with us and sharing your stories. But I have to ask you the question you're sick of. What would it take to get a White Lion reunion with Vito, James, and Greg?
What's the title of that Eagles DVD?
When hell
freezes over.
Well, here's the facts. Vito and I are on real good terms. Vito has not been on a stage or in a recording studio since White Lion played their final show September 2nd, 1991 in Boston.
Whoa.
Okay. James Lomenzo, the bass player, has played with Ozzy, David Roth, John Fogerty, Slash, and is now for the second time back in Megadeth and solid as a rock. And James and I are blood brothers all the way.
He was in. He did Black Label Society for a bit.
Well, at that time it was called Pride and Glory, the first album with Zach Wild. Phenomenal album.
That's right. That's right.
And I see him every time he comes around. We're always together. It's not so much what it would take. It would definitely take that it would be Vito that would make the first move. Mm-hmm. Now, with that being said, I am not sure that it would be great. And Vito would come out and insist on playing the songs in original key.
Right.
And I'd say, well, call Sebastian.
Wow. Well, there's at least you know what it would take.
If it's not to say, Vito said a few years ago on the Eddie Trunk show, and they've rehashed that interview a million times, like he's just quoted it. He says, well, the door ain't closed. And the door is never closed to me. And that would probably be a bigger chance for Vito and I to collaborate on something new and different, without comparing us to some of our heroes like Robert Plant and Jimmy Page. When they got together again, they were not going to do a new Led Zeppelin album. History has already been made, Yeah. But that's not to say if Vito suddenly got the fire going and says, you know what, I like to come play on one of your albums. I like to come out and play a song on stage and stuff like that. I go pick him up. Yeah. So it's not there. But I also respect Vito's own feeling about this, that there are times when you just don't want to go back up there, and you want to remember how it was when we actually didn't need an elevator to the stage.
Right.
Fair enough.
Or an ambulance.
Oxygen
tank, yeah.
Wheelchair. A cane, anything. Yeah, I agree.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time today. We wish you all the luck in the world with Songs of White Lion, the new album from Mike Tramp, coming out April 14th. We hope you'll tour that album. Maybe we'll see you out on the road in 2023. I hope you have some.
I'm playing the Northeast Coast all through the month of May, and of course that will eventually start building that. Hopefully. These are just duo shows together with my guitar player, because the finances just aren't there for a band. But hopefully the band, like we're doing in Europe, playing the big rock festivals, would be able to play some of them in America down the line, so people would actually get that feeling of how that was.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, we hope that all works out. I'd love to see you in Texas, and I know.
But I can tell you one thing for sure. From just looking at both of you guys' studio, I have actually fallen back in love with rock and roll.
Yeah,
mission accomplished, Jason.
I tell you something. I knew I was holding on to all this useless crap for something.
Yeah.
It was to inspire Mike Tramp.
If you can find an original Dangerous Toys t-shirt, I'd be very much up for one. Both me and my brother always loved that logo.
Wow.
And he's not going to have that tattoo. So if ever you have one or reprinted, I would be very proud to wear it.
I will get one in the mail as soon as possible when we kick you out of here so we can do our intro.
March.
Yep, I will get your address. We'll send you an email through your, I guess, Dave, his publicist, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll get your address and I'll ship one right to you, buddy.
Just get it to me when I come to America in May. Well, I'm sure we can catch up sooner or later, whatever.
Yeah, if you come through Texas, we can come find you.
You're also in Texas. You're both in Texas, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're right out. He's in Austin, and I'm just southeast of Austin. So
excellent. Well, Texas is one of my favorite places. It's just we're just not making it this time down there, but that's definitely a stop along the way. I've always, if I was going to move back to America, it's either going to be Texas or Montana.
Nice.
Yeah. Where are you right now?
Not in Texas or Montana.
No.
I'm in a very little country, smaller than the size of Texas, called Denmark. 5 million people.
Okay.
Bordering to Germany, just across from Sweden. Of course, it's not going to mean anything to you.
No,
I
know where that is.
I passed geography. I know where it is. I may not look like I passed geography, but I passed geography.
Good culture and good music coming out of Denmark.
Yeah.
All good. We're all good.
Yeah.
We appreciate you staying so long, man. We were expecting 30
man, I could go all night with you guys, man. I have a show with you guys because I mean the thing is that when everyone talks from the same point of view and have the knowledge and also grown with the times, like Jason said, we know when we met in the past, and 35 years have gone by and we have all evolved. We remember where we came from and we remember things a lot. But right now we also need to be current and keep the memories alive at the same time. And it's a great place to be. And I wouldn't change it for anything,
Yeah. Well, I've been listening to the new record and I love it. So thank you for all your past music and present and future as well. The songs like take me back to a certain spot in my life, and I love walking down memory lane and listen to that stuff.
That's what it's for right there. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Personally, from me, thank you for just being awesome. I wish we would have met prior to this because you're kind of awesome, man.
I could see a Dangerous Toys White Lion tour in like 89 or something.
Nice to meet you.
I definitely. I mean, we all chewed the same dirt, and we all, the same girls and stuff like that. I mean,
are you doing the Monsters of Rock cruise this year?
Not this time.
Oh,
I think I was passed on that. I mean, I've been doing them a few years ago. That's not to say that it couldn't be. It would be the perfect place for the band to do it next year.
You're right.
I mean, actually, Larry Mays actually given us a serious spot, maybe, a tour without, the usual lineup,
Right. No, I get that. I'm actually on it this year, but I'm not with Dangerous Toys. I'm fronting that band Dirty Looks. You remember Dirty Looks? Yeah.
Didn't the band originally have a Danish singer?
Yeah, Henrik Ostergaard. And he passed away about 12 years ago. And I've been a fan of the band forever. And their guitar player, Paul Lydell, who played on, The Cool from the Wire and Turn of the Screw and many more records, he's been in Dangerous Toys since '94. So the original rhythm section called Paul about 5 or 6 years ago to try to get a new version of it going. And Paul said, yeah, I'll do it with you guys as long as Jason's the singer. So I kind of was forced. Yeah, go ahead, twist my arm, because I'm already a huge fan, and me and Henrik weren't close, but we were friendly. So yeah, we put out a live record last year that sounds great, and so we got asked to be on the cruise this year. So we're looking forward to reliving those old, Cool from the Wire.
When is the cruise? In May or?
Yeah. It's the end of April into May. It's like April 29th through May 5th or something like that. Leaving out of Cape Canaveral.
Oh yeah, I'm starting on May 2nd and doing the M3 and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah. All right. Well, good luck with everything, man.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing your time with us today, man. Continue.
We shall meet again. I'll be back.
Yes. Yes. Famous quotes.
Well, Mike, thanks for joining us. Everyone look out for the new album, Songs of White Lion. It comes out April 14th. And on behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with our very special guest today, Mike Tramp, on the Talk Louder podcast.
Thank you, Mike.
My pleasure.